Stanford game. Oh, were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay. Talking about this UW Stanford game, and the quarterback battle that always gets talked about is who's playing who. Dylan Morris versus Davis Mills. Surprisingly similar stats. Not a ton of passing touchdowns. 4 for Morris, 2 for Mills. I guess like the turnovers really like adjust as well. I mean, Morris has 3 interceptions and a sack. Mills has 0 interceptions and 5 sacks on their season right now. Quarterback ratings are within 12. I don't really know how much that means. I don't think it means too much. Not when you're, I mean, Morris is at a 72 overall QB rating and Mills is at a 60.8. So neither of them are that great when you compare it to like higher caliber QBs and QBs in the NFL. But it's looking like a really similar battle for QBs. And I think it's going to start, that means at least it's going to boil a lot down to the intangibles for the quarterbacks, like composure, throwing through a sore arm, throwing through pain, stuff like that. And then a lot of it is also going to come down to running backs, receivers, and defense. And that's just the general thoughts that I had of this game, just looking at quarterbacks alone. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, this game, it's definitely, the quarterbacks both aren't like these stars or anything. They're both kind of game manager type, just taking what the defense gives, I suppose. Not the most aggressive quarterbacks, either one of them. And you mentioned game history. Last year, the Huskies lost to Stanford 13-23, and they lost because they couldn't stop the run. The Stanford starting running back, Cameron Scarlett, who's not there anymore, he had 33 carries for 151 yards and a touchdown. So it was basically just a game where Stanford would hand the ball off and give it to him. I mean, Stanford's quarterback, even in that fourth quarter, he actually got injured and the backup came in, but the backup did not record a stat, as all he did was hand the ball off and prevented the Huskies from getting the ball back and having any chance of really winning the game. So the key will be, I suppose, to stop the Stanford run game. It hasn't been as strong, I guess you could say, as in the past. I mean, just recently, last week, they had 117 rushing yards against Cal. So overall, the Stanford offense isn't too scary to look at. I think that, especially with the defense the Huskies have, they should be able to, in theory, stop them in the pass like all the games before. And it just comes down to which run defense shows up. Does the run defense against Arizona show up, which was solid? Or does the run defense against Oregon State show up, or Utah, which had its holes and the running backs were consistently getting to the second level? So that's what I think the game's going to kind of come down to, the running game.
Yeah, and back to the running game again. I mean, UW, I think, has set a pretty solid pattern now of not having like a single solo like power running back, but having this like nice spread amongst a bunch of them. When I was going through stats and like adding up this Excel sheet and stuff, I was looking at leading rushers, leading receivers, and stuff like that, leading tacklers. And then when I was going through rushers, I didn't want to say like everyone who's recorded a rush, like let's put their stats down on this table and like let me figure this out. So I looking at the UW thing, I was like, okay, there's 3 people in UW over 20. Like let's just say everyone over 20 we'll throw in there. Went to Stanford's, and they had one guy who's had more than 20 rushes so far this season. That was Austin Jones. He's 50 for 194. So he's like obviously their star running back. Went back to our stat side, and then I see McGrew 27 for 162. So half the rushes, only 30 yards under. Kamar Pleasant 30 for 138. Half the rushes, nearly 60 yards under. And then Richard Newton 23 for 122. So 70 yards under, but less than half the rushes. And so I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, so if defense to defense, offense to offense is anywhere near comparable. I mean, you throw on Nathaniel Pete for Stanford as well, 17 for 138. But I mean, you add these, 17 for, I just looked at that. Maybe Austin Jones just has really short, like a running game. Like he's used for 3-4 yard, 5 yard gains, because this is just now adding up in my head, and his rush yards are really low.
Yeah, Nathaniel Pete, I believe, is a young running back for them. He's a sophomore for him, and they haven't used him as much, but when they have used him, he's run really well. So maybe he'll get more carries against UW now. I mean, last week he had 6 carries, I think it was, for 6 carries for 24 yards, so a good average, 4 yards a carry. But overall, the Stanford running backs, I mean, they're not the best, but they're not the worst either.
Yeah, there really hasn't been anything like comparable to like Christian McCaffrey since he left, which was when that guy was absolutely amazing to watch play, and I don't think Stanford's found the replacement to fill that guy's shoes since he's left. And I think this will be a good buffer week for our inside linebacker, outside linebacker, defensive lineman core, and those guys in those groups to kind of like settle down, rehash like the basics and the principles, and like keeping their lanes closed, not letting gaps open up, not letting them run through the creases, because Stanford doesn't have bad or terrible running backs, but they don't have like league leading or college football leading running backs to just like pound on our linebackers. So I'm really hoping to see some more fundamentals get worked on and just see maybe not like better play, but just at least less mistakes.
Yeah, you want to get a quick score prediction in before you're running out of time?
Geez. Okay, so yeah, that one website predicted 30-17. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that big of a gap. 17, I take that back. I'm saying our defense steps up a little bit. We buckle down. I think Morris figures some more things out. I'm saying like let's go 10-17. I'm seeing a 10-17 game, maybe 10-21. I'm not sure.
Huskies win.
Huskies win.
See, I am thinking there's a bit of a gap. I think Huskies win 28-10. I think the Huskies defense plays solid all around, including run D. And I think that the Husky offense finally kind of clicks and gets something going. I mean, if you look at Stanford's game against Cal kind of shot themselves in the foot a multiple of times. And Cal, when they needed to score, they would drive down the field and score a touchdown, basically. So I think that the Huskies will be able to drive on this Stanford defense. And at the end of the day, I think they'll be able to score more touchdowns, which is what you want to do. And the Husky defense steps up, and I think the Stanford quarterback, Davis Mills, makes a few mistakes, gets picked off 2 times, and that sets up the Huskies for some easy scores. And in the end, the Huskies just win it 28-10 in a relatively solid fashion.
Yeah, I'm changing my scoreline. I'm saying 22-10. I'm saying 22-10. I'm saying
22-10.
After that kicker stat line you gave me, I'm saying we make 3 touchdowns and a field goal, but we miss 2 extra points. 22-10, that's my scoreline. That's what we're going with.